Okay, so while I have not met any of you guys in person in real life, I'd assume that the reason you guys are watching and following my channel is to get the latest updates on the macroeconomy, explore investment ideas, and also hear some of my personal experiences while working at my former and current job. Now, when we bring that all together, while every one of you may have different purposes, one way or the other, it generally comes down to making money. Now, I'm sure all of you have different reasons you want to make money, and I'm sure not all of you guys are aiming to get rich. I think a lot of you guys saw my How I Survived 6 Years in Investment Banking video, and a lot of you guys commented in the video that you'd rather not work that long hours, not get paid that much, and rather just live a more balanced, simple, and happy life. Now, people get happiness from different avenues of life. For example, for some people, including myself, accomplishing something at a tough job gave me more happiness than spending time with my family or friends. Well, at least that's how I was when I was in my earlier days of my life. I think I've changed a bit now, but looking back, I think that's all I cared about in my 20s and up to early 30s. But for some people, they would rather spend their 20s and 30s spending as much time as possible with their family and friends, which is totally understandable and relatable. Now, having that said, I may be oversimplifying things, but I think that most, if not all of the people would be willing to get rich if it was offered for free. Now, I can go into the details of my thoughts in the latter part of the video, but I think that while not everyone would want to go down the path of getting rich, including working the extra mile at a job, or succeeding in building a business or investing, I'd assume that most people would not say no if someone offered to make them rich in a short period of time. Now, as I said, I may be oversimplifying things, so please correct me if you're not the case. Now, throughout my life, I've been thinking about this concept of being rich all along. So today, I just wanted to share my ideas on the concept of being rich. And also, for those of you watching the video, please leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Specifically, I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts on the net worth number, preferably in US dollar terms, which you think would be enough to make you feel that you're rich and that you have enough financially. Also, I think it would also be helpful to get a sense of your approximate age and region you're living in so that we can get a better idea of where you're coming from. Now, I totally understand that numbers can be all over the place, given everyone is living under different circumstances, but just thought that it'd be interesting to hear what my viewers think. I hope you can just consider it a survey just for fun. Okay, so as I said previously, I've been thinking about this rich concept for a long time. Now, I think in order to define rich, things can get very complicated. Some people may think that being rich is strictly numerical concept which can be represented in a single number, or some people may think that being rich is more like a lifestyle concept, taking into account of your health, your family's health, and spending your time doing what you like to do. Now, for the purpose of this video, given the lifestyle definition of rich can be too subjective and relative, I'll try to focus more on the numerical definition of rich. Okay, now, when we think about the numerical definition of rich, based on my experiences, I think it can be looked at from two perspectives. The first perspective can be based on absolute terms, and the second perspective can be based on relative terms. Okay, let's look at the absolute criteria first. Now, everyone may have different way of defining what rich means, but based on Knight Frank, Global Wealth Reports, and the Wealth Report, rich is generally defined as person in the top 1% in terms of net worth. Now, I'm just citing a random source, so if you disagree with this, please let me know as well. Now, if you try to get a global number for this, while numbers are generally all over the place with little accuracy, globally, the median net worth of people is generally said to be roughly $10,000. Now, if we move up to the top 10%, the minimum net worth is roughly $100,000, and top 1% has a minimum net worth of roughly $1 million. So from global perspective, depending on how you want to define rich, if you own more than $1 million, in absolute terms, you may be classified as a rich person. However, absolute median net worth differs quite a bit depending on regions, so let's try to dissect the net worth numbers by region. By the way, for all the numbers, I'm using piecemeal sources as it's very hard to find reliable data. So please just consider it for entertainment purposes only, and also correct me if any of my numbers are not accurate. Now, in North America, the median net worth of people is said to be roughly $100,000. Now, if we move up to the top 10%, the minimum net worth is roughly $1.3 million, and top 1% has a minimum net worth of roughly $9 million. In South America, the median net worth of people is roughly $6,000, and in the top 10%, the minimum net worth is roughly $100,000, and top 1% has a minimum net worth of roughly $500,000. In Europe, the median net worth is roughly $100,000, and top 10%, the minimum net worth is roughly $750,000, and top 1% has a minimum net worth of roughly $3.5 million. In Asia, the median net worth of people is roughly $7,000. If we move up to the top 10%, the minimum net worth is roughly $100,000, and top 1% has a minimum net worth of roughly $1 million. In Africa, the median net worth of people is roughly $3,000, and if we move up to the top 10%, the minimum net worth is roughly $60,000, and top 1% has roughly $500,000. In Australia, the median net worth of people is roughly $300,000, and in the top 10%, the minimum net worth is roughly $1 million, and top 1% has a minimum net worth of roughly $5 million. Okay, so based on the data, we can make a few conclusions. Number one, depending on where you live, the number can be vastly different. Number two, however, if you're living in a certain region and has a minimum net worth of the top 1% of the people living in your region, which can go as high as $9 million and as low as $500,000, you can most likely comfortably assume that you're rich. Number three, the region with the highest net worth is North America. So regardless of the region, if you have a net worth of around $9 million, you can consider yourself to be rich anywhere in the world. Okay, so that was straightforward. Okay, however, this is where the trick comes in when you think about being rich. Now, I don't think I can find a survey which actually interviews everyone in the top 1% of the region, but if I look at the people I met throughout my lifetime, there are people who have smaller number than the top 1% who still feel that they're rich. And there are people who have much larger number than the top 1% and still feel that they're not rich. Now, why is this? Okay, so this is where the second perspective into finding rich comes in, which is relative perspective. Now, I want to share how my perspective on money and being rich evolved throughout my life. And before I begin, I just want to lay out a few caveats up front. Number one, as some of you may have felt in my previous videos, money was not the utmost priority in my life. The reason I endured all the pain and the long hours during my career was because I loved the feeling of accomplishing something within the world of finance. I liked finance as a job, and for me, it was quite intellectually satisfying. Number two, nonetheless, I did want to feel comfortable financially. Now, as you all know, I didn't want the financial comfort just because there was something I wanted to buy. As I said in my previous videos, like the stuff I bought after I got rich, materialistic things didn't really give me happiness. Rather, I wanted the financial stability so that I can, number one, have the feeling of choosing to work because I want to do the work, and number two, be in a position to provide for my family and friends when any help is needed. Now, just to elaborate on the first point, I just want to emphasize that continuing to work at your day job while having the financial stability feels a lot different from when you're doing it without such stability. If you have the financial comfort, you somewhat start viewing your job with a different set of lens, which focuses more on growing yourself as a better and more skilled person, so that you can use the skills to your advantage down the road. I just wanted to make that point just for your reference. And number three, now again, as I say all the time in my videos, I understand that it's not a huge wealth I built compared to all the thousands of gazillionaires on YouTube with dozens of Lamborghinis. So please just keep in mind that I'm only covering these kind of topics to share observations and ideas. Okay, so let me share some of my observations throughout my life. So just to jump to the conclusion first, I came to realize a few important things about a person feeling that he or she is rich in relative terms. Number one, whether you define yourself as being rich depends on your expectations. Number two, feeling rich depends tremendously on who you are surrounded by on a day-to-day basis. Number three, Your basic needs increase significantly as your wealth grows, and this impacts your definition of being rich tremendously. Okay, so let me explain these points one by one. First, on the expectation front. So on this one, I felt that there are natural aspects and social aspects related to this point. First, on the natural aspects. So I felt like that there are different level of expectations on the wealth people want to gain or feel like that they should gain during their lifespan. Also, I felt like this is something which you're born with. It's not about what people want to buy or anything like that, but just born to pursue wealth, thinking that wealth is not a mean but a goal. They think of wealth as something like building a territory of their own in a capitalistic society and pursue it like playing a game. The stronger this character is in a human being, the more likely a person is to be obsessed with building wealth. Now, if this characteristic is naturally strong inside you, a person is unlikely to feel really rich regardless of what their financial position is. Now, moving on to the social aspect front. So those characters can be molded and adjusted based on your upbringing environments. Parents' expectations and direct and indirect communications and learning coming from your parents, which you gain by watching them building wealth or working, can impact your character quite a lot. Seeing people around me, I saw people with strong obsession on wealth. Generally, these people don't stop easily and are rarely satisfied with what they have. However, I also saw plenty of people who change towards either direction. But one thing I'll say is that people who are born with those strong characteristics with obsession on money may kind of let go of that obsession. However, they're generally not happy. They more or less give up on building wealth rather than fundamentally changing their mindset. Now, in a similar context, people who have less of those characteristics tend to be satisfied financially, although it may not seem enough from other people's perspective. Second, on people around you. So, as people live through different phases of life, they get surrounded by different set of people who impact your view on level of wealth. Oftentimes, it can be very mentally unhealthy if you're a person who is continuously climbing up the ladder. To give you my example, when I was in high school, I felt $1 million was more than enough, and I didn't have a good idea on how much you actually need. But from college, who you hang out with really impacts your view on wealth. If you only hang out with friends from wealthy families, no matter how many part-time jobs you work, you'll never feel rich. But this aspect really starts to stand out when you start working at a job. To give you my example, I started working at a top investment bank as my first job, so starting salary was relatively higher than the median or average income. But I was only surrounded by people who make as much or much more income than I do. And it's very difficult to think yourself as a high-income earner, as every time you look around, there are people earning more than you, as you're the most junior guy in the office. Now, even if you work for quite a long time and accumulated a meaningful net worth of multi-millions, you still don't feel rich, as there are plenty of people around you who are significantly more wealthier than you, mostly because those people have been working for a longer time and, more importantly, had more time to benefit from the asset price appreciation, leveraging the high income they have been getting paid for a long time. However, obviously, when I got out of this circle from time to time and talked to people from more diverse backgrounds and industries, I sometimes felt that I'm relatively wealthier. Obviously, those feelings don't play any role in defining any relationships with anybody, but just from wealth context, that's how I felt a lot of the times, and same applied to a lot of my colleagues as well. If you're surrounded by relatively wealthier people on a daily basis, it is almost impossible to feel that you're truly rich, although in reality, you may already be rich. Okay, third, on the basic needs. So this is somewhat related to number 1 and 2, but 99% of the times, people's lifestyle gradually change as their income and net worth grows. To give you some examples, among my colleagues, these are the changes in lifestyles I witnessed while working in investment banking and private equity for almost 15 years. Now, as you all know, I didn't really participate in expanding the scope of my daily needs, but one thing I realized from observing people around me is that once you go up, it's almost near impossible to move down again. So these are some examples. Number 1, overseas vacation becomes a norm. Number 2, for some people, business class becomes a norm. Number 3, some colleagues who only wore fast fashion brands like Zara and $1,000 suits in their analyst days moved up to more expensive brands like Tom Ford, or even as high as Loro Piana and Zegna, and $3,000 to $5,000 suits after getting promoted a few times. Number 4, for housing, no more sharing flats and rent expense doubles. Number 5, gym membership also gets upgraded from a local gym to a private membership gym club. Number 6, when it comes to kids' education, spending can become obscene with boarding schools and private education. Number 7, you start spending more money on little things as dining out or drinking whiskey or wine, which can get exponentially high as you expand your scope. Okay, now, observing people around me, assuming they're somewhere in the middle rank or higher within the high finance society and have a family, I often see their minimum monthly expenses going up to around $15,000 to even $30,000. Now, there are cases where a household is living on double income, which gets a bit better, but there are cases where a family is sustained based on single income as well. Now, I can only speak from my personal experiences, but I'm sure things are the same at other jobs as well. I mean, minimum spending per month may be different from a person to another, but I would assume that in general, as you move up the corporate ladder and see how other people spend their money, you'll not just wear and eat the same stuff every day. I'm pretty sure that there will be some changes, although people may have different avenues of spending their money. Now, one thing I'll note is that there are people who really try to stay away from those kind of obscene money spending and try to save as much as they can. Also, they may not have any interest in making those purchases at all, so they may not need to spend that much money. The issue is that even if they don't spend that much money on a monthly basis, because those people see other people around them who make significant purchases and already know that there's a world out there where you can go spending spree, it's almost impossible for those people to feel that they're rich as well. They know that once they go into that spending spiral, it may not be sustainable in the long run. So oftentimes, they're consciously controlling their spending habits to not get out of control. Now, one thing which I also realized is that oftentimes, even those people do not give up on living in a nice house, in a nice neighborhood. I feel like residential address has become somewhat of your social status in high-income corporate world, so a lot of people try to leverage those extra savings to move to a nicer house, which also gives you limited room to live a financially comfortable life after spending a significant part of your net worth on a house. Okay, so based on what I said, I think I can make a few conclusions. Number 1, being rich is a super vague concept which can never be defined with a single measurement. It's all about self-satisfaction. Number 2, however, in order to maximize the self-satisfaction, you need to do 3 things. Number 1, you need to lower your expectations. And number 2, you need to diversify your human relationships so that you don't get too fixated on a single group of people. And number 3, you need to move your attention away from excessive spendings and get used to a relatively humble lifestyle. Now, you don't need to stick to the lifestyle you lived during your college for all your life, but it would generally help to live 1 or 2 notch lower lifestyle versus other people who are in the same income or net worth band to control your spendings. Number 3, on any spending, and especially on housing front, you need to set a clear line taking into account of your marginal utility. For example, owning a house with 3 bedrooms may give you 3x more satisfaction than living in a studio, but if there's really not much difference between owning a 3-bedroom home and a 4-bedroom home, you really need to question yourself whether it's really worth the chase. Same goes for all other spendings as well. Okay, so for me, I'm still in the process of figuring out the definition of being rich. I had multiple phases in my life where the number kept on changing, whether it's upwards or downwards. But one thing which I do know for sure is that this concept is always subjective and relative. So it would really depend on what kind of lifestyle and expectations you develop throughout the course of your life. Now again, I'm also curious to hear your thoughts as well. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back with more videos very soon.